You know, in this world, there's a lot of disagreement over what makes a role model. But I feel pretty confident that our keynote speaker tonight is someone we can all agree is a great role model. He started boxing at the age of 11, then enlisted to serve his country in the U.S. Army upon graduating high school in 1984. While he was in the service, he became a 4-time European welterweight and all-Army and Armed Forces champion. After his discharge, he eventually relocated to Florida, first in Pensacola and then Orlando. He served as a police officer and has remained active in the Air Force Reserves. After 9/11, he was deployed as a combat medic to Iraq. He wrote a book titled "The Fight Is Already Fixed," and he's currently working on another. Right now, he works for the Department of Veterans Affairs as a police officer and also gives his time to kids, coaching boxing and working to be a positive influence. Please welcome your keynote speaker for this evening, Mr. Mark Lanton.
Man, this is cool. I like this. It's great to be here with you all. Welcome to the 9th annual Florida Boxing Hall of Fame induction weekend. And my name is Mark Lanton, and I'll be your keynote speaker. As I look around, I see a lot of faces that I'm happy to see, faces that I haven't seen in decades. You Army boxers, you're my family, and I feel like I'm at a family reunion right now. I just thank you guys for coming. Coach Adams, you're the greatest. And I also see a lot of faces that I hope to become acquainted with, so don't be surprised if I come up to you and introduce myself. I would like to acknowledge our fellow boxers who are no longer with us, those warriors who paved the way for many of us to follow, those who were household names, and those who you never heard of. Those fighters with no trainers yet took a fight on a day's notice. They all played a role in a culture that you could not understand unless you was a part of it. I would like to personally congratulate one of this year's inductees, boxing trainer Kenny Adams. I know him as Coach Adams. Coach Adams was my Army boxing coach as an Army boxer. I first met Coach Adams at the Army European Boxing Championships, Kaiserslautern, Germany, in 1985. I was 18 years old, and I boxed at 147. I didn't know who he was, but he looked important because he had a group of people walking around with him. And he was wearing this really cool Army sports sweatsuit that I wanted. I remember I weighed in at 143. I stepped off the scale. Coach Adams said, "I think you make a good 39-pounder. I just remember giving him this blank stare and thinking to myself, man, I hope not. I didn't want to lose any more weight. After I won the tournament, I remember Coach Adams said to me, "I'll see you at All Army, New York." I didn't know how he knew I was from New York, but it made me feel good that he acknowledged me in that way. My first All Army camp was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina in 1985. And for those of you not familiar with All Army is a training camp for Army boxers who get invited to compete for the Army Championship. That's All Army. My first All Army was in 1985 at Fort Bragg. And this is where I got to know Coach Adams a little bit, and I learned that he was a highly technical and a fundamentally sound trainer. He paid attention to how you turned your shoulders, how you pivoted your foot, how you shifted your weight as you threw a punch. And all the moving parts that make that one punch, Coach Adams paid attention to. I remember fighting at a smoker at Fort Bragg in 1985, and I was going to fight a guy named Billy Bridges. At the time, Billy Bridges was one of the top-rated amateurs in the nation, so I figured I was in for a good fight. But I was confident because I was in great shape. And if you don't know anything else about an Army boxer, he's going to be in great shape. I was in great shape, and I had 1976 Olympic silver medalist Charles Mooney working my corner. I won the fight, and I remember Coach Adams was happy for me. I could still see him smiling in the locker room. Him and Coach Alton Murkison were standing beside each other smiling, and Coach Adams said, "You chalked it up." Now, that's all he said. but I took that as a form of approval coming from someone like Coach Adams. Coach Adams has been a figure that I always admired and respected. He's deserving to be recognized for his decades of sacrifice, guiding, and just mentoring people from all walks of life to be the best they can be in the ring and in life. And I would like to personally thank Coach Adams for being an example for me. Congratulations, Coach, you deserve it. I want to mention a newly released biography about Coach Adams. It's in bookstores nationwide. The book is titled Of Cowards and True Men. Now, this book chronicles an interesting story on the upbringing, military career, the amateur and the coaching journey, and the professional accomplishments of Coach Adams. This book gives the reader a chance to get to know Coach Adams on a personal level, which will inspire you as you read about his accomplishments that he's achieved. So get your book today, or tonight, or tomorrow, so Coach Adams can sign it for you. Maybe he'll let you take a selfie with him. I want to acknowledge another Army boxing coach of mine who is not here, who's presently in the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, Alton Murkison, Coach Merck. He was unable to make it this year. Coach Merck was unable to make it this year, but he sends his love and he congratulates all of the inductees. Coach Merck was my coach at the tournament where I first met Coach Adams. I first met Coach Merck at the training camp for the Army European Boxing Championships in 1985. There was something different about Coach Merck, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I remember our team was on our way to go train. We were riding in a van. Coach Merck was driving his van. As Coach Merck backed out of a parking space, he hit an unoccupied parked vehicle. Coach Merck got out of the van, wrote his contact information on a piece of paper, and he put that piece of paper underneath the windshield wiper of the car he hit. As a kid straight out of New York, I never saw anything like this. My thought was to leave the area and hope nobody saw me. I had a little trouble processing this, but I came to the conclusion that Coach Merck did the right thing, and from that point on, I began to look up to him with significance. I then adopted Coach Merck as my mentor, but he just didn't know it. I just looked at him from afar and learned. Coach Merck knew how to take care of his boxers during training camp. He used to make these granola bars with all these strange ingredients, and they were delicious. But hey, when you're making weight, anything you eat is delicious. Coach Merck had a unique approach into how he interacted with his boxers, and it was not uncommon that boxers gravitated towards him. There was a time I thought Coach Merck walked on water, for real. I remember we were at All-Army Camp at Fort Hood, Texas, 1987, and I was in Coach Merck's room talking to him. And I saw a case of Coors beer underneath his bed. I was totally shocked. I wasn't shocked because it was Coors beer. I was shocked because I thought Coach Merck didn't drink. I thought he was perfect. So I had to reassess this Coach Merck being perfect thing and came to the conclusion that, okay, he's not perfect, but he's still one of the best people to look up to and learn from. When Coach Merck retired from the Army and he began training pros, where he ultimately ended up in Pensacola, Florida, where he partnered with Roy Jones Jr. When Coach Merck and Roy merged, I was recently discharged from the Army, and I was a police officer in New York. I was window shopping for another place to live. I wanted to get out of New York, and any New Yorkers in here can probably identify with that. But Coach Merck gave me information about the Pensacola Police Department, and the rest is history as I relocated to Pensacola, Florida. Coach Merck and I have always stayed in touch over the years because he can't get rid of me. He presently resides in Clarksville, Tennessee, where he owns a restaurant called Pat's Cafe. So if you're ever in the area of Clarksville, I recommend visiting Pat's Cafe and get a taste of America's top soul food establishment. I visited Coach Merck, and I ate up all the food in his restaurant. I did. So to this day, I still look up to Coach Merck for his insight, his guidance, and his advice. Congratulations to Coach Adams. Congratulations to Coach Merck. I have been blessed to be around some of the most amazing boxing minds, talents, and teachers the art of boxing has to offer. This weekend will honor the latest recipients to the prestigious status of Florida Boxing Hall of Fame inductee. I am honored to be part of this special event and to be in the presence of so many exceptional people. You know, the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame has gained national and international attention as being one of the premier boxing Hall of Fames in the world. Now, I first need to recognize the tireless efforts of the Hall's board of directors, and you've heard them before, but I'm going to repeat it. Walter Butch Flansburgh, President; Steve Canton, Vice President; Kathy Flansburgh, CFO; Bob Alexander, Public Relations Media; John Dodano, Fundraising Sales; and the board members, Dr. Mel Gerardo, Corporate Governance and Guidance; and Dr. Alan Fields, Medical Advisor. Now, besides being great administrators, the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame Executive Board is made up of individuals who grew up in the sport of boxing, so they know the sport from every aspect imaginable. So why do we have a Boxing Hall of Fame, and what makes it so special? To me, the test that makes a Boxing Hall of Fame special is in twofold. Number one is the Hall's mission statement, and I'll get to that. Number two are the types of events and services they conduct and sponsor. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame exceeds the industry standards on both points. Their mission statement is in 4 points. Number one, to honor former boxers and those who have contributed to boxing. Number two, to promote the sport of boxing and establish a museum to honor those involved in the sport. Number three, to assist ill or disabled veteran boxers and their families who are in need. And number four, to further the general welfare of at-risk youth of the community with a special emphasis on those whose social and economic conditions indicate a special need for assistance. It is the mark of excellence that sets the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame apart and places it in a class all by itself. So what makes an individual stand out by his or her peers to be recognized as a Florida Boxing Hall of Fame inductee? To me, that's pretty simple. It is a participant and a contributor who has made exceptional contributions that have furthered the growth, reputation, and character of the sport. To that end, this class of honored inductees are once again the who's who have contributed in a large measure to Florida's rich boxing history. I next want to recognize Mr. Steve Canton and the SJC Boxing Club for all they have done for the community and our fellow boxers. They just celebrated their 28th year in existence, 28, that's a long time, and I want to congratulate them. SJC Boxing has multiple accomplishments, not only in the boxing ring, but in life. They have multiple achievements, and I just want to go over a couple of them. They produced 28 state amateur champions, 6 regional champs, and 1 national champion within their first 2 years of operation. They promoted the first internet broadcast of boxing in the world, viewed by more than 250,000 people from 15 different countries. They still utilize a 3-rope, 16-foot ring, which is the oldest ring in the nation and possibly the world. The canvas heavy bag with the logo as a sponsor of the 1980 Olympics was the biggest bag made ever by Everlast. It was 250 pounds. It was discontinued in the early 1980s, but guess what? It's still in use and in great condition at SJC Boxing. So I have to say that SJC Boxing is truly old school. And I beat up on that bag in March, so it's still in great condition. I tried to mess it up, but I couldn't. Now, to add another accolade for Steve Canton, he authored a book titled Tributes, Memories, and Observations of the Sweet Science. This book is full of real boxing history, personal stories of various boxing figures, rare photos, and it lets you see a side of boxing that isn't shown anywhere else. His book is available today for sale and signature, so get your copies, so maybe he'll let you take a selfie with him too. Now, each January, the new inductees to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame are announced from the SJC Gym in Fort Myers, Florida, in conjunction with their annual open house. Now, many of the new and former inductees are there to participate in these fun-filled events. Now, throughout the years, SJC Boxing has trained boxers from 72 different countries, second to only Gleason's Gym in New York, and they produced 10 professional world champions. SJC Boxing has multiple success stories, not only in boxing, but in life. Through the sport of boxing, over the years, SJC has developed and influenced countless youth to become great and successful citizens. So I just have to congratulate SJC Boxing for doing all that you've done for our communities and our fellow boxers. As a poor kid who grew up in New York, that's me. And I'm an example of this kind of outreach, and I'm thankful for organizations like SJC. Police departments in New York had programs for kids like me to occupy their time, learn discipline, learn responsibility. And I got involved in the boxing program, where I initially learned the custom model style. I was around guys like Mitch Green, Alex Ramos, Davey Moore, Ronaldo Snipes, etc. These are just regular guys to me who were great boxers. I remember being at the Eastern Regionals tournament in Bridgeport, Connecticut, 1978. This is where I first met Mitch Green. He had his big afro like this, right? No, it was like this. He had his big afro, and he had a toothpick sticking out of his afro. There was a group of us in his room, and all of a sudden, Mitch Green, he started to rhyme to a beat. And he was like bragging about himself in these rhymes. I thought he was sounding pretty good. I thought he was trying to sound like James Brown, because that's something James Brown would do. But come to find out, it was the first time I ever heard somebody rap. It was Mitch Green. The first time I ever met Davey Moore was at the same tournament at the weigh-ins. While everyone was in this big conference hall of this hotel, there were boxers registering at tables or weighing in. Other boxers were like trying to shake weight before they weighed in. Davey Moore was, I wish there was someone here who can vouch for me, because I couldn't make this up. But Davey Moore was naked and shadow boxing in the midst of everybody. It was as if he thought he was in this place by himself. I was 12 years old at the time, and I said to myself, I'm going to stay away from that guy. I continued to box throughout my teenage years, boxing in the New York Golden Gloves, Empire State Games, etc. One of the many gyms I used to train in was called The Cage in White Plains, New York. The Cage was owned by this old guy named Charlie Caserta. Charlie boxed in the 1920s. So in his office in the gym, he had the 8x10 photo of him in his classic 1920s stance, wearing his wool boxing shorts. And Charlie used to smoke this nasty, smelly cigar while we all trained. But back then, that's what they did. Now, this weekend induction festivities are truly a special time for those who attend. No, it's the personal side. The lesser-known side of boxing is on display. Relationships built over the years in the sport and the mutual appreciation and sense of accomplishment are evident. Most fans are only aware of what takes place within that squared circle, but not the sacrifices made by boxers and others in pursuit of their dreams. There are boxers, past and present, fight managers, promoters, media people, and fans who all share in a common bond, the love of the sport of boxing, the greatest sport that was ever invented, the sweet science as it's sometimes called. Boxing is an amazing sport comprised of some of the most amazing people, amazing in who they are as a person, and amazing in doing what it takes to prepare to get into the ring. It is a fact that a boxer is the greatest conditioned athlete ever, period. NFL, NBA, MMA, or any other athlete you could think of that's in top condition to perform their sport cannot last in the ring. The physical condition a football player is in to play in a Super Bowl is not good enough to fight a 12-round fight. When you're in shape like a boxer, you're in the best shape of your life. Look who they made athlete of the 20th century, a boxer. You can play football, you can play hockey, you can play basketball, but you can't play boxing. So I salute anyone who steps into the ring and battles until they give all they have, regardless of their skill set. Talent is one element that makes a great fighter. But if there's no heart, courage, desire to go with that talent, they won't go very far. Boxing is a team sport, and it's an individual sport at the same time. A boxer has a team of a promoter, trainer, manager, sparring partners, etc. Unlike football, a boxer doesn't have that fullback that's going to block that linebacker running full speed on the blitz that's trying to sack that quarterback. A boxer doesn't have that 6'8" forward that's going to set up a screen so you can go in for that easy layup. A boxer's not afforded a mulligan, as in golf, so he can't redo that sloppy jab to prevent that counter overhand right. Now, prior to your boxing match, your team is there on your behalf to help you win your fight. But once the bell rings and the fight starts, you're on your own. Your trainer can't throw your punches for you. Your trainer can't do your road work. Your trainer can't do your sparring. This is where it becomes an individual sport. And if you, the boxer, don't do these things, then they won't get done. Coach Adams, as an Army boxer, Coach Adams and Coach Merck used to tell us, you train like you fight. If you train and not give it your all in the gym, you're going to fight and not give it your all. If you train using bad habits, you're going to fight using bad habits. When I see young boxers nowadays in the gym, I rarely see the nonstop, hardworking, fundamentally sound boxer looking to learn something new every day. I hope I don't make anybody mad. I usually see the casual attitude, only throw power shots with no head movement, wearing earbuds as they hit the bag, trying to look like Money Mayweather. I can't blame the boxers. It's the coaching, or lack thereof. My observation is there is a shortage of quality boxing trainers and coaches. I see coaches all the time teaching bad habits to these boxers. And I sometimes want to show the kid how to do something properly, but it's not my place because I'm not the kid's trainer. Now, I'm only in this gym just to work out for my recreation. And from my experience, many of these trainers never boxed themselves. Now, there are some great trainers who never fought, but those are the exceptions. Sporting events and competitions have been a major part of life since the beginning of mankind. Exceptional athletes have always looked up to, admired, and respected. These athletes' achievements have been discussed, debated, recorded, and preserved throughout history. Boxing, in one form or another, is amongst the oldest of all sports. Boxers, whether champions or not, are amongst the most charismatic and colorful characters of all. An athlete of any other sport who displays a brash, bold, cocky attitude was probably influenced by boxers. And as I said, some of the most colorful people in sports are boxers. And you can go down a long list of people who you can describe as eccentric, showboats, who display their personalities in and out of the ring. My favorite personality in boxing was Jack Johnson, who flamboyantly flouted America's restrictive social mores around race and class. Jack Johnson was, as screenwriter John Ridley once wrote, a guy who basically lived his life with a metaphorical middle finger raised in the air. That's deep. Jack Johnson owned a nightclub. He acted on stage. He tap danced. He wore gold teeth. And he reportedly used to walk his pet leopard while sipping champagne. His biography, Unforgivable Blackness, it recounts an incident where Johnson turned over a $20 bill for a $10 speeding ticket. The police officer said he couldn't make change. Johnson just looked at him and said, "That's okay, because I plan on speeding on my way back, so you won't have to stop me then." True story. 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I left home for the Army. I became an Army boxer, Army champion, Armed Forces champion. After the 1992 Olympics, I was discharged from the Army, and I moved back home to New York. I took some good advice from Coach Merkerson, where he told me, don't waste 8 years. I did 8 years in the Army. Don't waste 8 years. Continue that time with the reserves till you get your 20. So that's what I did. But I got smart. I switched over to the Air Force Reserves. And I became a police officer in New York. In 1995, I relocated to Pensacola, Florida, where I was a police officer there. I subsequently turned pro in the Roy Jones camp with Coach Merck, and I'm so thankful that Coach Merck and Roy brought me in so I can get this out of my system. Because if I never turned pro, that would have been something that would have psychologically nagged me for the rest of my life. So I have to thank Coach Merck and Roy for that. After 9/11 hit, as a reservist, I was called to active duty multiple times. 2 of those activations was to the war in Iraq. I was a combat medic. During my second tour in Iraq, I wrote a book. It's a Christian-based book. The book is titled, "The Fight is Already Fixed," and I used the sport of boxing in the book to glorify God. My vision for this book is for it to become a motion picture. So if there are any filmmakers or screenwriters in the audience, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I recently completed another book that will be released this summer. This book is titled The Executive Meeting, Jesus Christ, Chairman of the Board. And I use the lens of corporate America and leadership to glorify God in this book. I'm excited about this book. I can't wait for it to be released in the summer. Herman Cain wrote the foreword, so he has a vested interest in it, so since he's endorsing it. Now, to sum it up, I've been extremely blessed to have been part of this rich boxing history. I cherish the friendships that have been formed, the opportunity to travel the world thanks to the sweet science, and the opportunity to spend these few moments with you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and spread the word so next year is even bigger and better. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you, Mark, very much. And thank you for all your service, both in the military and as a policeman.